Nickelodeon is so cool. They got SpongeBob, Rugrats, Drake and Josh, Concussions, Avatar, iCarly, The Loud House, Green Slime, Feet, and important to the purposes of our video, a fantastic studio space at Universal Studios in beautiful Orlando, Florida. Well, they did 20 years ago. Back in 1990, the famed children's network opened Nickelodeon Studios at the theme park, not only as a simple tourist attraction like everything else in that goddamn city, but also as a functioning studio space where game shows, live-action dramas, and whatever the hell Weinerville is was filmed. Branding itself as the first world headquarters for kids, it served its purpose of getting families up close and personal to all of that sweet, sweet television production action, baby. At least until 2005, when due to declining production and shifting priorities, Nickelodeon Studios was shut down, sacrificed, so we could bask in more of that yellow, spongy glory. Despite it being shut down faster than Harvey Beaks on Derrick Rose's ACL, the studio's legacy lives on in many ways. One way was a video created for the studio's 10th anniversary in 2000 to celebrate all of the projects filmed there up to that point, titled Best of Nickelodeon Studios Florida. This video was given to the employees of the studio, reminding them that the blood, sweat, and tears they poured into such masterpieces of television like Weinerville was not going unnoticed by their unnaturally orange overlords. As harshly as I put it there, this is a legitimately cool look back at all of the studio's productions, featuring all these cool behind-the-scenes clips from iconic shows that we plebs would never see otherwise. Luckily for us, YouTube user Ava Videos 1 had the foresight to preserve their copy of the video online for the world to see. Since then, it has been picked apart by us lost media archivists, and if there were ever a larger treasure trove, Captain Hook would have to retire out of spite. Pilots, game shows, pilots of game shows, live-action series, weird shit, even more weird shit, David Sidoni, this video is packed to the brim with lost media that no one would know about otherwise. It's rare to have so much lost stuff densely packed together in one tiny place like sardines in a can, let alone relating to arguably the most popular topic within the community for like a decade now. So now begs the question, what treasures lie in such a magnificent trove? What's the deal with this compilation to begin with? Why am I here? Why are you here? These are just some of the questions we will answer on our quest to document the best of Nickelodeon Studios Florida video. The young Sheldon-esque genius in me calculated 21 pieces of lost media present in the 6-minute long compilation. That's averaging 3.5 pieces of lost media per minute. We will go chronologically, starting with the Mets, baby! Right out of the gate, I had to do quite a bit of research to figure out what the hell this is. Sandwiched between footage of people behind the scenes at Nickelodeon Studios is this clip of the mascot of the New York Mets, Mr. Met, in a perpetually dark room. The 3-second clip is labeled Mr. Met, Nick at Shea, with Shea referring to Shea Stadium, the home field of the New York Mets from 1964 to 2008. What exactly this clip refers to outside of that, or its origin, was a complete and utter mystery. Nothing a little digging can't fix, said the mortician. It turns out that Nick made a deal with the Mets to host a whole-ass mini theme park at their ballpark during the 1994 and 95 seasons called Nickelodeon Extreme Baseball at Shea. That's right, Nickelodeon technically had a theme park 14 years before Nick Universe, just on a smaller stadium parking lot size scale. There were plenty of games, events, and costume characters, most of which incorporated some sort of baseball theme. The games included basic carnival-style games like Batter Up, Dugout, and Foul Ball. Foul as in the bird because it revolved around trying to launch rubber chickens into pots on a rotating turntable with mallets. These complemented the more elaborate experiences based on Nickelodeon franchises like Guts, Ren and Stimpy, and Weinerville, the show to end all shows. Funnily enough, the Weinerville attraction, called Playland Stadium, was said to be the most popular because kids could use water guns to eviscerate their opponents instead of the wooden baseball players which you would have to push to the other side of the arena. Fun times. By all accounts, Nickelodeon Extreme Baseball was actually quite successful, which is probably why there's a good amount of documentation online about it. In fact, it was so successful that Mets reliever John Franco complained that the team owners were spending more time on the side attraction than the actual Mets. While he later apologized for the remarks, by the time the event was over, the Mets had missed the playoffs 5 years in a row, so his grievances probably held some weight. And that's enough baseball talk for today, because I'm not in the business of losing engagement. As for that clip of Mr. Met in the Best of NSF video, the context in which it was used remains complete mystery. My leading theory is that it was some sort of pre-show footage they would play in the queue for one of the attractions, a la like that SpongeBob SquarePants 4D ride footage found earlier this year. If only we could find the whole thing, a thought that I guarantee you will be having a lot throughout this video. As stated, I'm not in the business of losing engagement, so how unfortunate it is that in this entry I have to talk about
current events.
Luckily for me, it's current events that aired on the same network as the Wild Thornberrys, so I think I'm safe in that aspect. Nick News, as the title suggests, was Nickelodeon's current affairs show that was hosted by famed television presenter Linda Ellerby. The lore behind this one is richer than you could possibly think, so much so that it probably deserves its own video at some point. So, to give a brief summary, Nick News covered all of the serious topics kids from 1992 to 2015 thought were important. Whether it be the Middle East, AIDS, 9/11, or the presidential election, Nick News was there to inform the young audience about current events in an intuitive and simple manner. O.J. Simpson, too. They made an episode about the man who made murder legal in the state of California. It's actually a really good concept both on paper and in execution, giving kids a window into learning about the world around them in an informative and engaging way. Unfortunately, since it's not the Wild Thornberrys, most of the show remains lost to this day. Actually, it's more likely that it's lost due to the lack of home media presence the show has had, but I'm also humorously comfortable with the narrative that trying to convince the average kid to watch Baby's first nightly news over some old-fashioned brain rot was an uphill battle not worth fighting. There could have been a quick fix though, just slap some Subway Surfers footage on that shit and you're good as gold. In the Best of NSF video, the clip of Nick News is of a broadcast live from space, according to this text at the bottom. From what I can tell, this is very likely from the 1994 episode Space Shuttle Phone Home, just judging by the contents alone. Outside of the 2 seconds we get in the video, this episode is completely lost, like most of the rest of the show. Nick News, more like Nick Knows, ha 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 ha. Despite Nick News' serious presentation, it was the exception, not the standard. In the early 1990s, Nickelodeon was a breeding ground for quirky, offbeat shows that captured the imaginations of the youth. I know I've made several jokes about the name of this show throughout the video so far, but here's where things come full circle. I'm of course talking about Weinerville, a massively endearing puppet show that could have only been possible by the girthy work ethic of its creator, Mark Weiner, shown front and center in the snippet within the Best of NSF video. Premiering in 1993, Weinerville was a unique blend of live action and puppetry, set in the namesake fictional town populated by eccentric puppet characters and their human counterparts. The show is known for its interactive segments, where audience members were transformed into puppets and participated in various comedic skits, along with running gags and recurring sketches. When fun skits weren't going on, the runtime would be filled with some certified hood classics like Mr. Magoo, Popeye the Sailor, Betty Boop, and The Alvin Show. Despite its initial critical success, Weinerville had a hard time gaining viewers, leading to its relatively short length, coming to an end in 1997 after just 2 seasons of limping ratings. Over the years, the show has faded into obscurity, with many episodes becoming extremely difficult to find aside from the occasional home recordings. Copyright issues stemming from the wraparound cartoons seem to hamper any sort of official re-release. And yet it still holds a special place in the hearts of those who grew up watching it. May the sun shine again upon the great Weinerville. Among the many treasures hidden within the 10th anniversary video are the numerous unsold pilots for game shows. There are a lot of these. A lot. Game shows were a bread and butter staple of the network back in the day, so it's fitting that this video serves as the only trace for many of these pilots' existence. That's kind of crazy to think about, and only adds to this video's prestige as the goated lost media topic, right up there with the lost pages of the Detroit Sunday Journal, Volume 2, Edition 51. Look it up, it's a real piece of lost media. The first of these pilots to show up in the tape is titled Generation Gap. This show was intended to be a game show that pitted kids against their parents or grandparents in a series of fun and challenging activities, testing their knowledge on each other's generations. So while little Timmy was over here yapping about some Jordan guy, Dad was talking about how he saw Prime Wilt ball out. That's about all we can gather on what this show is about. Well, okay, not the last part, but you know what I mean. Despite its potential to be an all-time great, Generation Gap never made it past the pilot stage. The reasons for its cancellation remain unclear, but the story behind this and a lot of the other game shows we will be talking about today is that Nick likely produced more game show pilots than Nick Cannon produces kids, and, you know, it's a business, they can only afford to do some of them. By the way, one of the clips in the video shows a kid named Derek getting slimed, so if you were a kid named Derek back in the early 90s and remember being on a Nickelodeon pilot, there's a comment section on this video waiting for you to plop yourself right into. Speaking of pilots, here's the pilot for Shelby Wink. Now, Mr. Buff Yoshi, you may be asking, what the hell is a Shelby Wink? See, if you're of a certain age, you might know of a sitcom that aired on Nick called The Mystery Files of Shelby Wink, which aired from 1996 to 99 for 4 seasons starring a teenage detective who solved mysteries with the help of her friends and grandmother. Fun fact, this show had Pat Morita in it, most known for guest starring in the hit Season 4 SpongeBob episode Karate Island. This pilot was basically Shelby Wink in its most primitive form. Like most shit in this video, we don't know a ton of specifics, but we do know one quite important detail. Jenna Lee Green, who would go on to star as Libby Chesler on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, would star as Shelby Wink in this pilot. This is presumably her in the only clip shown in the Best of NSF video. Interestingly enough, and when I mean interestingly, I mean to the small subset of my audience that is remotely interested in Sabrina the Teenage Witch that I'm certain exists, Green wouldn't have been available for casting in that show if Nick kept her around when going from Wink to Woo. Instead, they would end up casting Irene Ng for the lead role, changing the course of television history or something like that. That's that, and it seems the only reason we know this pilot exists is through the presence on the tape and a mention by Green in an interview from 3 years ago. Serving it up with yet another game show pilot, here's a fine course of I Don't Think So. Yeah, that's the name of the show, or at least what could have been a show. Produced in the early 1990s, I Don't Think So was designed to be a family-oriented competition featuring physical challenges and pop culture trivia. The pilot for the series was filmed at old Nick Studios sometime in 1994 and was produced by Scott Fellows, who later became known for his work on other Nickelodeon shows like Ned's Declassified. We all know Ned's Declassified, it's got Cookie in it! I Don't Think So followed a similar format to other popular Nickelodeon game shows of the time, most notably Family Double Dare. In fact, as far as we know, this was basically just another version of Double Dare, because Nickelodeon thinks they can make lightning magically strike twice in the same spot. 2 teams, each consisting of family members, competed in various challenges. The first round involved answering pop culture questions for cash and prizes, while the second round featured physical challenges that ranged from easy to Russian roulette levels of hard. Teams would go back and forth deciding whether to attempt a challenge or pass it to the other team by saying, "I don't think so." Really fucking clever game show we got here. The team that successfully completed the challenge or dared the other team to fail would win a grand prize, while the losing team would be slimed. The ultimate humiliation ritual. Needless to say, I Don't Think So really lived up to its name by never making it past the pilot stage, and the reasons for its cancellation remain unknown. The pilot since has become a piece of lost media, with only around 5 seconds of footage in the Best of NSF tape. Apparently a script for the concept was also sold on eBay back in 2013, confirming for all you ellipses heads out there that the title of the pilot did in fact end with 3 dots. I guess the shelving of this project serves as a reminder of how repetitive some of the concepts for these game shows could be at times. Nickelodeon has long been an innovator for children's television, not one to follow trends, but instead to make them. SpongeBob, Blue's Clues, even Breadwinners, which set the trend of shows that would make small Victorian children cry from fear. UDU is yet another key example of this. Not the small Victorian child part, but the setting trends part. It was one of the first television series to take advantage of the then new concept of the World Wide Web, and also one of the first to use user-generated content. The show aired from 1994 to 96 and was designed to engage viewers by showcasing their submitted work and ideas. Hosted by Ali Rivera and Serotonin Sparks, UDU allowed kids to send in their short stories, comic strips, songs, and more, which were then turned into animated shorts or music videos. The show also featured segments where viewers could play games over the phone, ask questions to celebrities, meet pen pals from other countries, and read letters aloud. The primary way U went to U was through the long-defunct Prodigy internet service, where viewers could create and send content to the show and participate in bulletin board conversations. While not exactly the most memorable or successful show in Nick's murderer's row of 90s television programming, it was at least popular enough to get a short-lived spin-off called UDU On the Road that aired for 4 episodes in 1996, and was hosted by Dave Sidoni. Things are getting real. These episodes were actually dug up and released last year, but they seem to have been taken down with no backups in sight, unfortunately. Despite its innovative format, the U did not keep Ewing, and much of the show remains lost media to this day. There are only 6 full episodes available online, with some more scattered clips, including this clip of the insanely oversized set in the Best of NSF tape. We're getting to a big one here, absolutely massive, as in a certain haircut whose meme status wore out long ago, but that's besides the point. Judging by the fact that you clicked on this video, you almost certainly know of this next show's existence. After all, Nickelodeon most definitely wants you to. I mean, they named a whole-ass programming block after it for Pete's sakes. One of the most iconic shows, if not the most iconic show to emerge from Nick Studios in the 90s was All That. Created by Brian Robbins and Mike Tollin, All That was a sketch comedy show aimed at a young audience, often described as a kid-friendly version of Saturday Night Live. The show premiered on April 16, 1994, with a pilot episode that introduced viewers to a cast of talented young comedians, including Kenan Thompson, Kel Mitchell, Lori Beth Denberg, and Amanda Bynes. The four horsemen and women that, in a way, became indicative of Nick's image in the late 20th century. Dare I say, they were all that. The show quickly became a staple of Nickelodeon's programming, known for its hilarious sketches, memorable characters, and musical performances. The show featured a variety of recurring segments such as Good Burger, Vital Information, and Ask Ashley, which became fan favorites. The success of All That led to several spin-offs, including Kenan and Kel and The Amanda Show. Orange soda. That was a good one. Despite its popularity, All That faced challenges over the years, including cast changes and shifts in production locations. The show was originally filmed at Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando before moving to Nickelodeon on Sunset in Hollywood after its second season. In fact, due to Florida's controversial right-to-work laws, many shows that started at Nick Studios would end up switching coasts by the end of their run. After 10 seasons and over 200 episodes, the original series ended in 2005, leaving a sketch comedy-sized hole in Nickelodeon's proverbial heart. Since then, the show's legacy has grown, as did its fledgling cast. But much like good old Weinerville before it, copyright issues have plagued the show's full release. All That has periodically reran and been released onto many streaming platforms, but since musical guests appeared in most episodes, whether or not they can get the go-ahead to air said music is always a toss-up. Sometimes episodes are released with the musical segments completely intact. Sometimes episodes are released with them cut out. Sometimes episodes just don't release at all and are stuck in lost media limbo. Wink wink. In any case, it's mostly been up to fans to archive the full show. There is a list on the LMW article documenting whether or not episodes are found, incomplete, or lost, but I could not confirm independently if people are still updating this list or everyone moved on to some fuck-ass mobile game plaguing the LMW forums. In Best of NSF, clips from All That are shown throughout, showcasing the show's unique brand of humor to the employees of Nick Studios. It's arguably the most popular show filmed at the space, and considering its incredible legacy, I hope one day we can say to ourselves that the entire show is available to watch, officially or unofficially in some form. I still sleep at night though, so I guess it's not all that big of a deal. Somebody get the airplane, because here's yet another pilot. As the title would suggest, Camp Nick was designed to be a family-friendly competition set in a summer camp environment, where two teams, red and blue, faced off in various physical challenges. Sounds a lot like Double Dare again, but don't think about it too much, that was in the past. The show aimed to capture the joyous experiences of summer camp, with activities that tested the contestants' skills, teamwork, and endurance. Well, once again, we can only really make an educated guess. Despite its promising concept, it never made it past the pilot stage, and the reasons for its cancellation remain unclear. The pilot has since been buried 6 feet under, with only a few snippets available to the public in the tape. Interestingly enough, a show called Scaredy Camp aired on Nick Gas in 2002 with a similar premise, but it is unknown if it is related to Camp Nick or just a coincidence. We will be seeing a similar scenario play out later where a pilot gets maybe, kinda, sorta, maybe revived in the future, so stay strapped to your seats and buckle up that subscribe button to prepare for a ride in the abyss of Nickelodeon shit. One of the most beloved game shows to come fresh out of Nick Studios in the late 90s was Figure It Out. Hosted by Summer Sanders, Figure It Out featured a panel of Nick celebrities who tried to guess the unique talents or achievements of child contestants through a series of yes or no questions. It was cool and unique, effectively reviving a genre that was dead in the water because of priorities. Woo. I said priorities. But, and this might come as a shock to the people who aren't taking notes for the test, but Figure It Out has a lost pilot that was featured in the Best of NSF video. At least it had the plus of actually becoming a show, which only makes it marginally more interesting than every other pilot here, but I digress. This one did look quite different from the final series, sporting a different logo and a different set with a bunch of puzzle pieces scattered about as if it were an autism awareness shirt. Former MTV VJ Kevin Seal is also the host of the pilot instead of Sanders, with the celebrity panelists being Darius Love, Irene Eng, Kevin Koplo, and Danny Tamborelli, who funnily enough has his audition tape also in the video. The lore goes deep. He would go on to voice Jimmy DeSanta in GTA 5, so I guess it all worked out for him in the end. It is not known if there were any conceptual or gameplay variations in the pilot, considering no actual gameplay is shown. The pilot is featured several times briefly throughout the Best of NSF video, and a few other places for once. A contestant call promo that uses the pilot's logo in small clips was made, and the YouTube channel Adam Fairland documented a crew member's experience working on the pilot itself, showing this picture of him drawing a cool S on a board. I kid, apparently it's an upside-down cake? From what I could gather, no one has reached out to him to see if he has anything else from the production. The inclusion of these clips from the Figured Out pilot in the Nick Studios 10th anniversary video has sparked at least a little bit of interest, as from my experience it is by far the game show pilot from the video with the largest following. Not that it means much in the grand scheme of things, I could probably count the amount of people actively searching for this thing on all 3 of my fingers. Yes, all 3. Remember earlier when I mentioned the famous David Sidoni, the man, the myth, the real estate broker? Apparently Nickelodeon was trying to make him the face of the channel in the mid-90s, for in between hosting shit nobody watched and shit no one remembers, he took up hosting duties on a shitty unsold game show pilot called Morph Sports. Well, okay, I can't for sure prove it was a bad pilot, but it did not get picked up, so there had to be something wrong with it. Morph Sports aimed to showcase sports, but morphed. From what few clips we have, this primarily came down to sizing them up to human proportions and making contestants compete in them. I can't say that's the most original or captivating concept, but come on, what's a Nick game show with originality? Get back in the corner, Brain Search fans, this is not about you. Needless to say, this pilot has since become a piece of lost media with only a few snippets available in the tape featuring big bowling, big basketball, and big David Sidoni. Sorry, David, I didn't mean to say that. We love you, David. Please help. Alright, now it's time to go inside Eddie Johnson. A name just as eye-opening as this interstitials concept. First airing as a part of the Snick Snack lineup between commercial breaks in 1996, it was designed to blend humor with science by exploring what goes on inside the body of a 12-year-old boy named Eddie Johnson. I know that sounds terrible, but just don't let that information enter your temporal lobe. This show is innocent, I promise you. It used a combination of live action and special effects to depict various bodily functions and processes, making science fun for the whole family. Inside Eddie Johnson featured a cast of characters who lived inside his body, including notable actors like George Wendt and Susan Sarandon. These characters would interact with each other and explain the science behind common experiences such as digestion, anxiety, and other bodily functions. Because of its status as an interstitial, it wasn't exactly the most well-remembered thing in the world, but it had at least some value to both Nickelodeon and the target audience. Episodes still remain readily available, even through official sources like the Nick Rewind YouTube channel. What isn't available, however, is the pilot episode. Now, why you would need a pilot for a series of interstitials is a level of understanding beyond my pay grade. In the Best of NSF video, however, it is labeled as such. We get a whole 2 seconds of a kid acting as a hockey goalie, dare I say, inside Eddie Johnson. The video also labels this pilot as being for Noggin, which to my knowledge never aired the interstitials. One Google search later led me to a page on the Noggin wiki titled The Big Orange, stated to be a cancelled concept for an educational sister channel that conceptualized in the mid-1990s by the president of Nick, Geraldine Laybourne. Various news articles of the time describe it as a, quote, interactive learning channel for preteen audiences, which just so happened to be not far off from a channel being developed by the Children's Television Workshop, the same people behind Sesame Seeds or something of that matter. A few years later, Nick and CTW would make a deal to merge their ideas together and create Noggin, hitting the airwaves in 1999. That's all fine and dandy, but the real potatoes to this meat is that Nick developed a pilot for a fully fledged series based on Eddie Johnson as one of the first for the new Noggin network, as stated in the 1997 article from Ad Age. It never got picked up, and Nick would let Noggin sit around in the cooker for a little while longer to let it simmer. Talk about some complicated exposition leading to a big payoff. The next 2 lost legends in the Best of NSF video are more along the same lines, so I figured I would just combine them both here. Blue's Clues, to put it lightly, is absolute cinema. I should know, I made 2 whole videos about that damn dog. Ever since its premiere in 1996, Steve Blue, and maybe sometimes Joe, if you're lucky, have captivated audiences worldwide. The key word there is worldwide, because there have been several international adaptations of the show that viewers of a certain lost media channel may know about, each featuring their own hosts. I'm retreading old ground with this one, but I figured my very mature audience, who was voted most unlikely to send death threats by the New York Times, could handle it. You got Kevin in the UK, Duarte for Portuguese-speaking countries, and Uncle from Korea. Hey, I'll have you know his name actually translates to Uncle. While these adaptations are lost media mythology in their own right, today we are going to focus on something from them that might be even more obscure than the adaptations themselves. The pilot episodes. Pilots for the British and Latin American adaptations of Blue's Clues are shown off in the Best of NSF video, with that last one being particularly intriguing because no Spanish-speaking adaptation of the show was made at all. No sign of the Portuguese or Korean adaptations pilot in the tape either. There really isn't a ton here to talk about, since while the adaptations have their own intrigue to land, these clips are the only proof these pilots ever existed. Hell, I question why they are even the best of NSF video to begin with. The original American version of the show was filmed in NYC, and from what I can tell, the international versions were filmed in their respective countries of origin. Their inclusion makes me think that it was just these pilots filmed at Nick Studios, something that I myself cannot confirm independently. There isn't a ton more here to talk about, so go watch the other video if you want. Nope, I'm not talking about this. So, pilots, am I right? A lot like airline food. Tooned In was one of them, that's for sure. This game show, filmed at Nick Studios in 1998, was designed to test contestants' knowledge of Nickelodeon cartoons through a series of trivia questions and challenges. The whole gimmick was the animated characters combined with the live-action footage, adding a little bit of Roger Rabbit seasoning to my delicious Double Dare steak. Just yet another game show pilot that is only known through the Best of NSF video, of which only a few seconds are available showing the live-action and cartoon host, along with the logo. The other treasures awaiting inside this pilot have yet to be unearthed. But this is not where the Tooned In story ends, as in 2021, Nickelodeon premiered a show with the same name, which would go on for 2 seasons of 36 episodes. It is unknown if this show is related in any way to the 1998 pilot, but it would be really weird for Nickelodeon to go back to this one random unsold pilot and say, yeah, what if we actually made that? Considering the Occam's razor principle, I guess we can chalk it up to a strange coincidence. Who knew? No, seriously, that's the name of this next unsold pilot. We probably know the least about this one out of any of the others, however, as the footage in the Best of NSF video has 3 seconds of 2 nondescript ladies behind a podium. Nothing of the show's actual premise is remotely known, though judging by the name it was probably some sort of quiz show. It was shot in '98 and buried away in due time. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, and there's always a bonkers piece of lost media at the end of the game show pilots. We talked about the Figured Out pilot before, now it's time we get into a lost episode. Woohoo. Cue the walk cycles, Patchy. Season 2, episode 40, known unofficially by me as the I like my eyes drippy bruh episode, aired once in old '98 and was never seen again. Around 10 to 15 minutes ago, I explained how Figured Out is a show about unique and interesting talents performed by its young contestants. One contestant by the name of Anthony from New Hampshire was able to snort milk through his nose and then push the liquid out through his eyes. It's kinda gross, but nothing super alarming considering how many wacky stunts took place on the show. And hell, his sick trick seemed to pay off as the panel did not guess his secret, and he got a free trip back to Universal Studios. However, kids can be little gremlins, and the episode was pulled after just one airing in April 1998, apparently because a mother contacted Nick to complain after her child tried to emulate the act. While this was probably done out of good faith, I find it hard to believe just because it seems like something that someone would say offhand as a joke after seeing said clip of milk cornea relations in the Best of NSF video. Another clip of a dog drinking out of a girl's mouth from the episode is also featured in the tape, which is arguably even more worthy of a mass puking on the level of Electric Soldier Porygon. But the rabbit hole goes even deeper than that. According to the LMW, there was a disclaimer put on this one singular episode of the show saying not to emulate any of the acts shown. This claim remains completely unverified, but even the thought of Nick feeling that they needed to inform the audience about this one episode is quite strange, to say the least. Maybe lawyers got involved, or maybe Nick pulled it as a precautionary measure, but whatever the case may be, the I like my eyes drippy bruh episode is no longer accessible outside of the brief snippet in the Best of NSF tape. Nickelodeon has had many iconic sitcoms, from Clarissa to iCarly to whatever the flying fish of Nicky, Ricky, Dicky, and Dawn is, but No One Knows Best is certainly not one of them. It aired a lone season on Nick from 2000 to 2001, and we have concrete proof that it existed, but I am completely and utterly convinced this show would not affect the timeline of our universe if it just randomly jumped through a wormhole and stopped existing. The series starred Philip Van Dyke as Noah Besnick, as he and his sister Megan live in an apartment in central New York City with their parents. They try to get each other in trouble, play up some wacky antics, and all as we follow Noah's social and school life. Damn, I gave the game shows quite a lot of flack earlier for being bland, but this show is on another level of mundane. Literally, it's about a normal boy going about normal activities in a normal place. That's not a show, that's life! Series creator Ken Littman would later state that there were creative differences, and that his version for the show never matched up with Nickelodeon's, leading to its eventual downfall and lost media status. Today, most episodes can be found in varying levels of completion and quality, and no one cares because why should they? In a strange twist, the entire show is available in Russian. Yeah, so over there it aired on the channel THT, and all 13 episodes are archived and available on Dailymotion, as compared to 9 episodes fully available in English. This doesn't even include the pilot, whose existence is only known through its inclusion on the Best of NSF tape. That's practically all we know of it, for the void creature known as Noah Knows Best must be kept contained as an SCP at all times. I'm going to open this next segment by stating that Slime Time Live is said by Wikipedia to hold 2 Guinness World Records, one for most people pied in 3 minutes, and for most people slimed at once. Just goes to show you that you can be a world record holder in anything if you're specific enough. See, I'm the world record holder in the amount of times the word Weinerville has been said in a Nickelodeon Lost Media video with 10 mentions. Where's my plaque? Slime Time Live is the name of the variety series that was filmed live either in or outside Nickelodeon Studios for much of its run between 2000 and 2004. It's a pretty hard show to summarize just because its concept was so fluid throughout its run. Boiled down to the basics, it revolved around contestants, hosts, celebrity guests, and staff that would produce entertaining banter and play games that would air during the commercial breaks of major premieres. Oh yeah, and slime. Lots and lots of slime. It's in the name. There was also this cool thing called the Cream Blaster tile, but we don't talk about that. Considering the concept, it's no surprise that much of Slime Time Live is lost. Just look at this list on the LMW, there's so much red here that even communists would shake in their boots. With its vast amount of airings, interstitial status, and generally repetitive content, it's a recipe for something that isn't going to get preserved all that well. That's not to say the series didn't have value, in fact it was probably one hell of an experience to go to one of these events in person back in the day. But now it remains a simple memory of those bygone days where Nick Studios was in its prime. Staying on this whole slime theme we got going, here's Slime Survivor. Surprise, surprise, it's another game show pilot, produced in 2000, and according to one Redditor who saw the taping in person, it was quite the wild one. Quoted directly from the post, it began with a group of 100 kids that ran out under a big rig that had individual spaces with pull ropes. Once they pulled the ropes, 50 contestants made it and 50 didn't. Afterwards, there were different challenges, team events, and trivia sections that eliminated more and more contestants until only one was left. I should be keen to point out that the actual Survivor game show that everyone holds dear premiered the same year this pilot was produced, so never say Nick wasn't a trailblazer. Or psychic, either one floats my boat. Outside of this very brief, tip-of-the-tongue plot synopsis, not much was actually known about the show for the longest of times. We didn't even know who hosted the show or why it wasn't picked up. Fortunately, I live in the present, baby, so now I can tell you it was hosted by newscaster Siafa Lewis, and was likely shelved aside to pick up Double Dare 2000. And how do we know this? Because a rulebook for the show just so happened to appear on eBay in November of last year. The starting price for that script was $500, and it eventually sold on December 6th for an undisclosed amount. We might just have to wait and see if it gets released. I've been waiting for about a year, and all I did was die so I could still hold out hope. As for the pilot itself, all we have are the blurry clips and Best of NSF, of which feature a pretty insane looking set by Nick game show standards. It seems this would have been quite the spectacle if it were picked up. Y'all really just couldn't resist Double Dare again. Also, there's a plaque, because of course there just has to be a plaque. There's a plaque for most of these shows, by the way. Even me and my friends has one, and they don't have anything aside from abject sadness. On the other hand, Lowdown Underground is quite the unique obscurity that not many people seem to know about. A departure from the typical pilots and game shows and game show pilots featured in Best of NSF. It was a stop-motion short film produced by Alana Nicole Allen during her senior year in 1999 at Brown University. She would eventually go work on shows such as Hey Arnold and Celebrity Deathmatch. According to a website of an event that the short was shown at, it was about Quentin, a 9-year-old skateboarder, colliding with an elderly woman in a subway while riding home from the supermarket. They are accosted by a punk hustling for change, and later joined by a jazz musician. Through their compassion for each other, the 4 strangers unintentionally form a surrogate family. They redecorate the subway car and call it home. Fun times, said the content creator. Even with this general info, not much is known about the short to this day, as it seems to have aired on Nick silently a few times before falling into the depths. But the story does not end here. Around a year and a half ago, my good friend Sue Reviewer actually reached out to Alana about the whereabouts of the short. She responded fairly quickly, first stating the previously known info about it being her graduate film. Then, she proceeds to drop some absolute bombshell information. The music for the short was written by Prince Paul from De La Soul, Trek from Naughty by Nature, and Peppa from Salt and Peppa. Talk about pushing it real good. She then goes on to state that the Museum of the Moving Image has a copy of the short and will try to upload it to YouTube sometime soon. Sounds good, right? My secondhand account probably doesn't do justice to the excitement that came with this new information. In the meantime, he sent another email regarding its relation to Nickelodeon Studios and the Best of NSF video. She responded stating that while Nick did have a large role in its production, they were really only involved in post and wasn't sure of Orlando's involvement. That brings to the table another question about why it was briefly included in the video to begin with. Hello, this is me from the future. You know, it's funny that I wrote the script like, I don't know, a year ago, and yeah, Lowdown Underground has been uploaded by Alana since then on September 9th of this year, so yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty good short, I'll admit. Well, you have the chance, give it some love, it's only got 31 views right now. Wait, that's it? That right there is every piece of lost media in the Best of Nickelodeon Studios Florida video? No, it can't be. Surely there has to be more mini rabbit holes we have to comprehend. Surely my spidey senses aren't tingling because... Wait a minute. This isn't everything from Best of NSF. Ava, Videos 1 YouTube, if that's really your name. You have just been exposed. The copy uploaded onto YouTube is only 5 minutes and 44 seconds long, but I've been able to prove there's no way the full video wasn't longer, making it so Best of NSF is still partially lost, making everything I've mentioned thus far pieces of lost media, inside a piece of lost media. The metagame has been changed, minds have been expanded, and I think I just shit my pants. Get the wipes! Get the wipes! Exhibit A. The YouTube upload starts around 1994, not 1990 when Nick Studios first opened. Considering that this tape is supposed to celebrate the first 10 years of the studio, it's extremely peculiar for it to be missing a good 40% of the studio's history up to that point. Also to note is that there's an oddly placed fade-in at the beginning that goes straight into the footage. No intro or anything of that matter, implying that this was deliberately placed on the uploader's part. Exhibit B. There are these little transitions that bookend years of productions at the studio. While these may seem unnotable to the neurotypical eye, look in the background. It has the names of several productions featured in the video, Me and My Friends, Generation Gap, All That, etc. However, there's several that aren't featured in the upload we have, like the Lost Game Show pilots Go For It and Humongous, shown here as Colossal Humongous, just like your mom, perchance. There's also Best of Total Panic, The Big Help, Allegra's Window, and some that I couldn't find shit about online, like what the hell is Magic Mission or Scooter? The crazy part is that most, if not all of these productions listed are believed to date back to the early 1990s, which, considering Exhibit A, would make a boatload of sense. There could be even more footage of lost media hiding in the shadows that we don't know about on top of the already massive treasure trove in this video. So, is the Best of NSF video that we all know and love incomplete? Well, as of now we can't be 100% sure, much like your mother being colossal humongous. There's a hell of a lot more evidence pointing to the answer being yes, rather than no. Why would Nickelodeon act like the first 4 years of the studio's history doesn't exist? Why would there be a deliberate fade-in placed at the beginning by the uploader? Why are there productions listed that simply don't appear? Why is there a tracker on my car with the Paramount logo on it? You would have to skirt around a lot of evidence, take a few left turns, then jump straight into an active nuclear reactor to believe the upload on YouTube's the full thing. What are you hiding, Ava Videos 1? Answer me or face the truth. Because we at the BrayBray channel, and when I mean we, I mean me, believe you hold the key to the secrets we seek. The Best of Nickelodeon Studios Florida tape is many things. It's a reminder of all the incredible and fondly remembered productions that were created at the studio in its heyday. A tape meant for employees to look back at their hard work and creative visions. A golden trove of lost media that captivates us. And to top it all off, it's got Weinerville. That's 11, put 'em on the board! It's a weird little mystery whose aura reaches beyond comprehension and into the minds and souls of the lost media realm. One can only dream that someday the Pandora's box of secrets behind this little video will be opened. Unfortunately for the lost media wizards abound, that day will have to wait. For now, mystery is the name of the game, and thus the Best of Nickelodeon Studios compilation is still a lost media legend. not as much as me, but I can't be that ego-driven. This has been BrayBray, thanks for watching, and remember that Buff Yoshi is forever supreme.